The new Torchlight season is underway and it delivers new content, brand new legendary items, enhanced loot, dangerous gladiator mobs that grant you massive damage and area bonuses when defeated, and there's also a seasonal affix applied to each of your characters that allows you to scale in a brand new way. In this video, I'm going to show you my build of choice for the preseason, as well as how to level it from level 1 all the way up to this. Now let's start by looking at the new affix. During the preseason, the physique modifier has been granted additional effects. Instead of being mostly cosmetic and increasing your character size, it now also grants additional damage and skill area. So for every 1% physique, your character will gain 1% additional damage and 1% additional skill area. Now it wouldn't be all that interesting if this was all, as there aren't that many sources of additional physique within the game. So alongside that, every 50 life or 120 energy shield will grant your character 1% bonus physique, up to 200%. So this means if you aim for at least 10,000 total health or 24,000 total energy shield, you'll gain the maximum bonus, which ends up being 3 times damage if you were to compare the build to something you had played in a previous season. And as well as the much larger skill area that it would also grant. So that's one way of getting physique. The second way is by killing these gladiator mobs. Now these are very deadly. During the campaign you will find yourself being locked in with a gladiator mob that will not let you run away, and you may have some difficulties killing it, but rest assured if you do, you're going to get a massive boost to your physique, which in turn again will grant you that additional damage and skill area, and this will last for the entire duration of whatever zone you are in whenever you kill this mob. So the earlier in the zone you kill a gladiator mob, the more benefit you're going to get from the skill area and damage that it grants you. Now my build of choice for the preseason was Mind Control Spacetime Elapse Youga. So this is the purple Youga. If you've not played him before, he focuses on dot damage. He creates a space-time zone that he records the amount of damage you deal in that time, and it will tick up and you will deal more damage the longer enemies are stood in there. Now you do have to balance your space-time energy, but we'll get into that later. The basis of the build is that you use mind control in order to apply a dot damage to the enemies. It's not an ailment dot like ignite or something like that. Instead, it deals an amount of damage over a duration. That's what makes it dot. It's a skill dot. This game has skill dot and it has ailment dot. This skill is a skill dot. So we pair that with the powerful level 36 talent in Psychic called Reap Purification. This talent allows you to settle 80% of the remaining total damage when reaping. So when you reap an enemy, you will take all the damage you would have dealt over the duration of that skill, and you will deal 80% of the total damage you would have dealt. So if you would deal 1,000 damage in 5 seconds, this will immediately deal 800 damage and remove the dot. Now you may think this is annoying, you have to recast it. You do not. The mind control will keep re-triggering and keep applying to the target, so you don't need to worry about that. A small thing you can do is go into your settings, come down to the battle tag and click this auto guide, and then all you have to do is activate it once and it will remain activated. You don't have to hold it down or anything like that. You can just aim your mouse or your controller or your phone or whatever, and it will do it for you. You won't have to mess around holding down right click the entire time. So a very good thing. This works for any channeled skill in the game, and something I recommend doing if you're going to play a channeled skill. So we now have our scaling, we have our skill, we have how it's going to deal damage, but we now need reaps. So at level 36, what you're going to do is you're going to respec all your Goddess of Deception tree, level up with Flame Jet up to level 37, and then at 37 you'll have 36 skill points. So you can come and you can remove all the points out of this tree, and you can just put everything into Psychic to get to this major talent. You can just beeline straight to it, and you could also grab this reap at the end. It says reap 0.5 seconds of dot. It doesn't matter what this duration is, as we do have reap purification, so reap duration does nothing for this build. All you need is a source of reap. The duration is fixed at 80% of the total remaining damage, so just a reap is needed. So we have one there, and early on you can also use one on your skill. You can use a Reaping Agony support gem, which will provide another source of reap, and this one actually has a much lower cooldown. This one will happen 4 times as frequently as the one on the skill tree. So we now have 2 reaps, and you will be flying through the game. You can simply run through, activate your blurry steps, zoom around. You can even have blink early on to jump around as well. Make sure you keep activating your blurry steps to stay speedy, and you're going to be good. You're going to be killing absolutely everything, powering through the game all the way up to maps. Now at the point you get to maps, you want to start adding in more sources of reap. as they do have a cooldown. So the way that you're going to scale those instances of damage with Reap Purification is by getting more Reaps and having them apply more frequently. This is done by grabbing Reaps on alternative pieces of gear, like your wands. You see here I have 1 Reap, 2, I have 1 on my belt, I have 1 on my gloves. You can also get 1 on your amulet. I do not have 1 here, but you can also get them from your divinity slates. I have 1 here. And then finally, you can get them from your hero memories. So many sources of Reap you can get on your character, and each Reap is basically like a hit. It's an instance of damage for this build, as you're going to be waiting for them all to come off cooldown. So more instances of damage is more damage in the long run. Another way to scale the instances of damage is by getting Reap cooldown recovery speed. This can be done with rolls on your rings. This is a lot more end game though. An early game option for getting Reap cooldown recovery is from your relic. You see here 5% additional reaping cooldown recovery speed for every 25 space-time energy you have. This combined with Reap cooldown recovery from, say, the tree, you get a little bit from these points here, 16%. You can also get some from your divinity slates. I think I have some on one of them. I'll see if I can find it for you. There you go. You get 4% on your divinity slates, and then you'll get additional from your relic. So what that does is now you have all these Reaps, and now they happen more often too. In order to get your initial Reaps at level 70, what you can do is farm yourself a wand and craft it with 1 Reap. It's not too difficult to do. If you just drop any wand in a level 70 zone, you'll be able to come in and craft it. It only costs 1 flame sand to re-roll an item that is level 70, so it's not going to be too expensive. If this isn't an option, you can go to the trade house, go into the advanced tab, gear, scroll down to weapon, find wand, and then here type Reap, and you'll be able to just search for a wand. Now they could be good, they could be bad. Either way, you could go this route if you don't want to craft one. You see there's one for 5 FE here. You could just grab this, throw it on. All you're looking for is the Reap initially. Later on, there are of course more ways to scale the damage. There are many ways to scale the damage in this build. So we've spoken about adding Reaps, having them happen more often. Now let's buff up the skill, and the way we're going to do that is with spell skill level and erosion skill level. So raising the level of the gem to at least level 30 is what I would say is the minimum, as you do gain like 10 to 12% more damage per skill level from 20 to 30. After 30, it does fall off and it's only like 5% more damage per level, but even then you still do get that more damage. So spell skill level and erosion skill levels, always good. You want to get up to at least 30. Next, we have Affliction. If you don't know how Affliction works, it's a modifier that stacks up to 100 on the target, and each stack causes the target to take additional dot damage. So if we have 100 Affliction on an enemy, they will take 100% additional damage, so you'll be dealing double damage to them. You can then scale the Affliction effect so that they take even more. So if you have 100 Affliction on the target and you have no Affliction effect, they'll take double damage. If you have 100 Affliction on the target with 100% Affliction effect, they will then take triple damage. So very good to scale Affliction effect, very good to scale levels, Reaps, Reap cooldown recovery, and then obviously in this preseason, because of the physique buffs, you can scale energy shield. So get as much energy shield as possible on all your gear in order to further scale your build. Obviously, if you can get up to the same total I have, which is 24,000, you'll be doing 3 times the damage because of the affix we spoke about earlier. So this is how you're going to scale the damage. It's not too convoluted and crazy. Get Reaps, have them happen as often as possible, and scale your skill level and Affliction effect. Pretty basic. The hero trait itself, the one thing you're going to want to do is balance your space-time energy. I did it early on with 2 secrets of time because you can't take this space-time speed up. You just lose too much by losing space-time cousin. So using 2 secrets of time is a very good way to do that early on. Now later you could get yourself a pushing the cogs of fate. This is very expensive, but it does provide you access to this hero trait right here, space-time speed up, which will solve all of your space-time energy needs, as well as granting you additional Affliction effect, and it will grant you an additional memory slot. So if you want to min-max this build, getting a pushing the cogs of fate is definitely something you want to aim towards. But as I said, it's very, very expensive. A lot of people are playing Yoga. So Secret of Time will do you just fine if you don't want to push to this very high level of grabbing and pushing the cogs of fame. Now, in terms of skills, we can use a lot of empower skills in this build. There are some very, very strong ones outside of the main skill and all its links, which will be in the description in the builder if you want to check that out. We do use a lot of activation skills, those being Arcane Circle to gain additional spell damage, as well as Elemental and Erosion Penetration. Obviously, it's the Erosion Penetration we're looking out for. Blurry Steps is how you're going to be getting around. This grants you a ton of movement speed, especially because of how much cooldown and empower skill effect that we're getting in the build. This is going to be up all the time, and it's going to be very, very enhanced because of all our skill effect, whether that's with Mania granting 62%, Mass Effect gaining 16% per charge, and we end up having 3 charges, so what, 49% almost increased effect. Some from the skill tree, it's a lot. Mana Boil grants 18% additional spell damage baseline, and then you have things like Mania, again, Mass Effect, and the skill tree, all buffing it up. And then finally, Star Stalker, which causes the mobs to take up to, as you see, a 57% additional dot damage. Obviously, this is enhanced by like my skill levels, but even so, it's going to be about 40% additional damage at base, and then this scales again with all the enhancements to empower skill effect you have either attached to it or on the skill tree. So a lot of damage coming from empower skills in this build. You could, if you want, automate them by using rhythm. I chose not to do so. I just kind of piano through my buttons. You don't have to do that. If you want to use the rhythm support gem instead of pressing them, absolutely fine. No big deal. You could definitely do that. For auras, we're going to be looking at Energy Fortress for Energy Shield, Erosion Enhancement to enhance your erosion damage, make you deal additional damage to enemy's life, and grant you Erosion Pen. Great aura for this build. Deep Pain causes you to deal additional dot damage as well as gain some duration. Precise Swiftness is just going to make you zoom around a bit faster. And then finally, we have Curse on hit with Entangled Pain, so that enemies take more dot damage again. Precise Elemental Resistance is going to basically make it easier to gear, as well as granting this additional maximum resistance. And then Magical Source is going to take care of any mana needs. So that's the skills. If you do need any of this, it will be in the builder. As for candles, I just have one with movement speed, bit of aura, sealed mana. I don't even need that, but you can go with Ellie Rares, movement speed. There are some really strong ones that grant your main skill additional support gems. Things like Control Spell or Grudge are the best in slot for damage. You can also get the Soul Eater Candle, which grants you area, move speed, and damage per enemy killed recently. There's many ways you can go about candles. You can definitely experiment there. For talents, we're starting in Goddess of Deception. Obviously, we're kind of started in Psychic and working backwards, as I mentioned earlier in the video. But Goddess of Deception is going to give you Wind Walk, which means that within 2 seconds after you deal dot damage, you're going to gain additional dot damage, just 25% more damage, then 35% more damage from Forbidden Power. If you do need these trees, again, they will be in the description. Psychic gives us the ability to apply Affliction, as well as a massive boost to our Affliction effect. This is additional effect. Reap Purification, obviously. And then in Warlock, we have Prelude. Skills do snapshot in this game, so if you activate your Mind Control for its entire duration, it will gain this 30% additional damage from Prelude. And then finally, we have Off the Beaten Track to boost up our support skills. That's why you could see like Mania and all the stuff that I showed attached to our power skills. It was really buffed up, as well as all the links to your main skill. So it's all going to add up to be much, much more damage. And this build, it definitely gets up there. Now, finally, slates are what you're really open to doing a lot with your slates. I haven't gone too crazy just yet, but getting skill duration, reaps, affliction, reap cooldown recovery speed, even things like persistent skill levels, all skills are very good on this build. Aura effect, some very powerful mods just with how kind of broad this build is in terms of its scaling. You can get a lot of good slates for this build. But finally, we will talk about the gear. So for gear, Energy Shield, Reaps, we've gone over it, Reap cooldown recovery, spell skill levels. But the big one that you can see here that I have is Imperial Might. This again is very end game, it's very expensive, but it is going to be how you gain access to these, 25,000 plus numbers of ES. And that is done because it grants your gloves, helmet, and boots a massive increase to the amount of energy shield they give you. Mine says 43% increased defense for helmet, gloves, and boots for every other piece of gear equipped. So that would be 9. So 9 times this number essentially. and it gets kind of absurd. You can see if I take this off, I think I go down to about, yeah, 10k. So this more than doubles my AS. It's definitely worth getting if you're in a position to do so, but it's very expensive. If you just want to get a high energy shield chest with some other usable modifiers, whether it's aura effect or elemental resistance, feel free to do so until you get rolling. I hope you enjoyed this build guide. If you want to play this build and you have a great time with it, let me know in the comments. You can leave a like on the video, subscribe for future content, or check us out over on maxrollgg for all the new updates regarding Torchlight, as well as leveling guides for every class in the game. I'll see you next time.